Morning.
Good morning. I just want to remind everyone that Reverend Shoken's talk will be recorded this morning and will be up on Great Tree Zen Women's Temple YouTube site. And a reminder about the practice of dana. In Buddhism, when Zen practitioners share their understanding of the teachings and practice, it is offered freely as a practice of dana paramita. Dana is a Pali word that means generosity or to give freely, and this practice is done without expectation of getting something in return. This is the spirit of speaking about the Dharma. Other ways to practice dana are to offer support to those who share the teachings, to support places of spiritual practice, and to give without judgment of expectation when opportunities arise. And those who share the teachings at Great Tree do so on a dana basis. Please support their practice by giving what you can. You can either do this directly or through Great Tree, and we will pass it on to them. In the chat, you'll find the donation pages for Great Tree and Ryumonji, which is Reverend Shoken's temple in Iowa, I want to say. Is that correct?
That's right.
All right. All right. And with that, I'll pass it to Anne.
Finally got unmuted. Yes. So by way of introduction, Reverend Shoken Winecoff is founding teacher and abbot of Ryumonji Zen Monastery in Dorchester, Iowa. He's a Dharma Heir of the late Dainin Katagiri Roshi, who founded the Minnesota Zen Meditation Center. Reverend Winecoff practiced with Katagiri Roshi in Minneapolis from 1976 until Roshi's death in 1990. Shoken also received formal training with Ikko Narasaki Roshi and Tsugen Narasaki Roshi at Zuoji Zen Monastery and Shugoji Zen Monastery, both in Japan, from 1989 to 92. Since then, he's devoted himself to establishing a Soto Zen monastery in the Midwest. And I've heard it's beautiful and it stands in the cornfields. And now Teisho would like to say a few words about her Dharma brother.
Yes, that it's very interesting if you're driving around Decorah, Iowa, all of a sudden in the midst of all this flatness and cornfields, you see a traditional looking Japanese monastery in Iowa. Shoken and I started about the same time at Minnesota Zen Center, and we sort of have followed the same paths. Decorah, where he is where my grandmother grew up. So it's called Little Norway. And Shoken-san is also a former Catholic priest. So we have that sort of Catholicness in common. So some of you have met him. He's been out here 3 or 4 times and actually has family in Troutman, North Carolina, not so far from here. So we follow a lot of the same paths. So thank you for coming, Shoken-san. Welcome. Happy to have you.
Great. Tejo, you're looking great. Thank you. And nice to briefly meet you all, at least facially here. And yeah, you know, Iowa is here in the Midwest. And Tejo and I sort of grew up together more or less at Minnesota Zen Center back in the 70s. So I don't know about you, Tejo-san, but I'm getting old.
No, I'm not.
Okay. You know, I keep getting AT confused. I tell people I keep getting 8T confused with 18, but I'm really 81 anyway. So, okay. I'm not sure I can, teach you anything. I mean, I could teach you the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, the 10 Commandments, but for me, Buddhism is, it's right under your feet if we kind of look at it in a certain way. And that's what I'd like just to try to convey with you. Our title this morning is Zen in Everyday Life. And I think what that teaching is about is that we all know what everyday life is about. I mean, not that any of us, can write the decisive volume on everyday life, but we're all living an everyday life. And in that, we come up with, a lot of stuff that comes up. And it comes up, where we never even expected, and so we are all here old enough to know that life's not always, the piece of cake that we think it is, and that there's a lot of nitty gritty reality that keeps bubbling up in life. That where are you with all this? We are swung, in the Buddha's time, someone lost the baby, and the Buddha told that mother to go, to her family, to go to other homes and see if they had deaths in their family. But, and the person saw, many people had deaths in their families. But, we all sort of suffer with things, and it's part of everyday living. So, you could say that life is, arising and disappearing. Everything is arising and disappearing. We arose, from my father and mother. My father from Troutman, North Carolina. Stone's throw from the mountains of Asheville, we're rising and we're disappearing, your heart, my heart, it beats a lot of beats in a lifetime, but there's a limit to how many beats that muscle can put out. Sooner or later, it's just going to take a big pause and go to rest, and we're passing. Someone said, where did I just read? Oh, this is the Dalai Lama. He says, we are like on a ship, crossing a great ocean. So, anyway, well, so day-to-day life is, if you look at it, this is without any kind of teaching, but you can see how interwoven and interpenetrated all life is, right? So, I had cereal this morning, Where'd the cereal come from? It came from the earth. Did it just come out of the earth as cereal? No. You know, the seed had to be planted. Someone had to harvest it. There had to be sun. There had to be rain. So I am all of that. And not just from the earth, this earth. Look at it. Okay, I'm not asking anybody to believe anything. This is what attracted me to Buddhism. Katagiri Roshi never asks us to believe anything, you know, like some kind of dogma. Just look at life. That is awakening. So if we even looked at the earth, you know, it's, you know, the earth isn't just the earth. The earth is in a relationship, an orbital relationship, you know, with sun and, you know, with moon, with stars, you know, it's like with galaxies. And galaxies are interwoven and interpenetrated, you know. Well, how many galaxies are there? We always wanting to put a concept on it. I don't know, you know, but, you know, they're just out there. Is that the right language? I don't know. Who's out there? We are just one of those floating things way out there to somebody who's, well, I don't know if there is a somebody, but living in another galaxy, looking at us through a super duper telescope. So the truth is, the real truth is there's a causal and effect relationship between every phenomena, every arising. And that causal effect is we could say, we use this phrase, all is one. So we're you know, right? You know, we hear that, you know, all is one. There's even jokes about the, you know, vendor at the baseball game and the fellow telling the vendor, I want all is one, you know. I mean, I'm messing that joke up. It's an old one, you know, one with I want one with everything. Yeah. Right. So that's, you know, that's kind of okay, you know, it's like that hot dog is with a little piggy running around there, you know, or anyway, we chant the Heart Sutra this morning. I chanted. In that Heart Sutra, what do we say? You know, no life, no death, no eyes, no ears, no nose, no tongue, no body, no. We all these no. Well, what the heck is that? You know, it's not something for you to believe because the Buddha or somebody said it. But, you know, if I say nose, nose is oatmeal. Nose is my mother and father's love for me, to give me enough internal stability to be in one place and to be able to talk this morning. So nose is nose, but nose is empty of its own substantiality, we say. What does that mean? That it's not just nose. Nose is everything. Nose is the whole galaxy, interwoven, interpenetrated. If we had a microscope that could penetrate exactly, you know, all those causal relationships that bring us to this moment. I see you on a screen and you see me on a screen, but we're real people. You know, and how did we appear? We are connected by who knows what, how this is working, but we are. So in a sense, we are one. Know me, know you. We are at this moment, we are kind of being with each other. So I'm a little part of you, you're a little part of me. You're bringing something out of me. when I sat down to talk or think about my talk, what do I have to say to anybody? I struggle with life just like you struggle with life. But the deal is, if we try to differentiate ourselves from what is, if we try to kind of separate ourselves and say, well, this is how it should be. It shouldn't have been this way. Yeah, right. It shouldn't have been this way. But you know, it was. I slipped on the ice. Or this happened. Or, you know, that tree fell on me. Or I got hit in the back of the head by, you know, who knows what, and where did that come from? You know, it's like things happen, even with insurance policies, even with your best plan on how to get from Asheville to Rumanji. I hope you could all come and visit sometime. But those Google things, they don't work sometimes. People have ended up in cornfields around here, and you know, they haven't even come close to where we are. They have to go to the old bar down there in Dorchester, you know, which is our little town. And the bartender, he knows where we are. He's our guide. I'm dependent on that old bartender. You know, I mean, his life is my life. You know, so if we see that all substantiality is interwoven, interpenetrated, and includes all, then, you know, it's beyond me. The real issue, can I be one with what is? Can I be one with cancer when I have cancer? Can I be one with, you know, today's day, this talk? That's the issue. Can I take care of where we are? Be there. Beyond measure, it's a good talk, it's a bad talk, you know, or this is a beautiful day, or it's a lousy day. That's based on my parameter or my barometer. But the reality is, it's a day. So Zen and everydayness, that is the morning gata, the little morning prayer. I don't know about you, but we were supposed to say, you know, prayer before meal, prayer to get up, prayer to go to sleep. So Buddhism has the same thing. There's a morning gata. It's a good gata. Gata means prayer or something, you know. I don't know literally what it means, but what is the morning gata? Waking up this morning, I vow with all beings, because we are with all beings. We have to understand we are all beings. We are also with all beings. You are you and I am me, but we are one. But waking up this morning, I vow with all beings to realize everything without exception, embracing the 10 directions. What does that mean? To realize everything is to realize, means to turn it over, to make it happen, to make this day happen. Sunny or cloudy, if you're sick or you're not sick, if you're old or if you're young. You know, this is the day that's interwoven with countless space and universe all time. Be here, be alive in this day. That is a Buddha way. Beyond our discriminating, you know, between I like it or I don't like it, we were always tossed by that. This is our human way. I like things this way. I don't like things that way. I like my toast buttered this way. Not too much butter, just enough. I want a little butter, but it's bad for my arteries. You know, we want it to be just right. Always. This is our way. And when it doesn't go that way, and somebody slaps a big dab of butter on it, you know, do you throw it away or do you just eat it? The Buddha just ate it. and died of some mushrooms or something that looked a little raunchy to him, or I don't know how he died exactly, but I'm not saying, we should be passive or, but can we get with what is, merge with it? So the release of suffering is, can I be with what is? So that's where this statement comes. Let me just say this, that enlightenment is right under your foot. So what that means, I think, is this moment that we're sharing together, you getting up and getting yourself together, appearing this morning for whatever reason. Here we are, me too. Tejo invited me, wonderful. Here we are. Can we be alive in this moment? That quality is really, so we say, whole universe is there. Enlightenment is right under, it's not an intellectual, kind of concept. It's not a kind of an experience that you can do by trying to sit up to long hours, and, or sit lots of zazen, so I have some kind of enlightenment, or stand under a freezing waterfall, or, go out in the desert, I'm not saying those things don't have its purpose, but hey, the first teaching Katagiri Roshi gave when Tejo-san and I were at Hokioji, we all gathered for a little Dharma Heir meeting, and people left their shoes all kind of wabi-sabi all on the porch before we went into his little room in his log cabin, little farmhouse, and the first thing he said, look at your shoes. What do you mean? Look at your shoes. Just, enlightenment's right under your foot. Look at your shoes. How were the shoes? Shoes are like this and here and here and here and there. They weren't here. We do this gesture a lot. Can we bring ourselves here and be in harmony with what is? That little teaching is, let's not get kind of anal about things or whatever, but look at your shoes. Look at your space. Do you have a little period of cleaning? Maybe once a week? Okay, once a month, guys. Excuse me. It's like to take care of what's under one's foot is merging with the whole universe. So the issue is, do you wake up in the morning and vow, take to realize everything, embracing the 10 directions. Embracing the 10 directions as it comes at us, from north, south, east, west, up, down, life is alive. How do I merge there? So Zen in everyday life. Katagiri Roshi said, I never learned anything from my teacher. That's a strange statement. That really caught me and it stuck with me. It's in one of his books here. But he said, I never, learned anything from my teacher, like a bunch of dogma, so to speak, to believe in. Like I, was taught a lot of dogma from first grade on. And I believed and I believed and I believed.
you know, but Buddhism doesn't ask you to believe anything. Just look at life. So Katagiri Roshi says about his teacher, I never learned anything from my teacher. But what I saw was that his life was just going like a river. What is that? Can we just go like a river? A river doesn't ask if there's a bend. It just follows the bend. It's not perfect, but it wears things out. It gets muddy, maybe. But his life, Katagiri observed from his teacher, was just going like a river. Sometimes we get off to the side and get hung up in the branches. Sometimes we capsize in what we thought was our safe canoe, or a hole gets punctured in the bottom of it. Or somebody stands up when they're not supposed to stand up. And all of you are upside down in the water. Life's like that. But can you kind of, sir, his life was just going like a river. It wasn't that his teacher didn't have issues or problems or things you had to deal with. We all have that because we're all kind of come out of our own kind of notion of self. But that's just our idea about how things should go. There was a beautiful imagery I also read. This is a chapter, Tejo-san, this chapter is called Emo, Suchness. It's in the Shobo Genzo. Those of you who are familiar with Shobo Genzo is Dogen's, Zen Master Dogen was a Japanese monk who went to China. When he came back, he wrote many things. The first thing he wrote is the Fukansa Zengi, which I'd like to kind of close with when we get there a minute. But he in this chapter, hang on with me a second. He said, in truth, if you look at things, if you look at our lives, just look at it. You don't have to buy it, or believe it again. So Dogen says, in truth, it's obvious. He says, one manages to arise from a living road. What does that mean? A living road. We think a road is a road, but it's not so. Living road, has potholes. A living road is slick when there's ice on it. A living road doesn't always have forks in it, and you have to make a decision which way to go. A map said one thing, but it just doesn't make sense. The living road has other people and vehicles and children running out into the street. And if you're going 60 miles an hour through a suburb, it doesn't work very well. So can we live on a living road? Not just the road we think, or how fast I'm going in my life, or I'm going to get this job done, or I'm going to, whatever. These are all good ideas, We should have all of that. ideas and where we're going and stuff like that. But it's a living road. To not see that is really to get bent out of shape. It's really to get destroyed in yourself. It's really like you think hopeless feelings. You know, I mean, there's suicides galore now with the pandemic. People confined and all the things we depend on stripped away. Marriage counselors are going berserk. You can't get a marriage counseling appointment, you know, because everybody's right there, you know, and, you know, like, here we are. Can you kind of just take care of a moment? This is to take a breath on the living road. And to be with the living road, to be in the center of a flowing river or whatever metaphor you want to use, it's like you have to take a breath. You have to be connected to yourself. Otherwise, you're all over the place. So Zen in everyday life, you know, I wasn't looking for Buddhism. I came out of a whole structure of religious belief. I needed to take a collar off, so to speak, and just live my life, what I thought. But, you know, it's like that way is, you know, it's, anyway, it's easy to get lost. And so where is it to find oneself? It is to come back to this moment. So I wasn't looking for Buddhism. When I went to the Zen Center for the first time, I don't know if it was, you know, right before you, right after you, but Tejo-san and I were there. I kind of feel always, you know, we were always sort of there, you know. It's but that first time, it was my former brother-in-law who said, "Hey, I heard there was a Zen master in town. You want to go check him out?" I said, "Sure, this is the 60s, you know, or the 70s. And yeah, okay." So I reluctantly went, right in the throes of my life being totally upheavaled with a 3-year-old son, and the bottom had fallen out. So I sat down for one of those 40-minute sittings. And I remember it was the second seat in from the door, looking out those curtained windows in Lake Calhoun. If you could see through those laced curtains, there was Lake Calhoun out there. I remember what seat it was, because when I sat down at that moment, I had no idea, or first of all, that I could sit that long. But secondly, by the time that 40-minute period had gone, and that's particularly like that last 2 or 3 minutes, I had settled enough in myself to take an honest look at where things were. Like, this is where it's at. This is where it's at. Quit your antics. Quit your, you know, rah, 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 whatever. Quit your upheaval and disturbedness in yourself. You know, grow up is another way of saying it. Grow up meaning deal with what's under your foot. You could say it was a moment of enlightenment, or it was a moment of merging with realizing everything with what is. It was a living road that I needed to get on, not the road I had planned or thought or who I was or whatever. This was a reality that was right there. We've all had experiences of that in different ways and times in our life. And in the moment, it's a tragic time. It's an angry time. It's a depressed time, or it's it's upsetting or disorienting. But it just, just to be with that is like a blossoming of a flower. It's like to begin right here, right now. That is a moment of enlightenment. It's a moment of oneness with whole universe because you're with the river as it is. And you can either swim or just give up and sink. So, Zen in everyday life is a way of living. We call it a Buddha way. That's not a denominational way. So you get into a discussion with your in-laws about Buddhism versus Christianity or Hinduism or something. Cut it. What is Buddhism? Buddhism is to be alive in your life. And Zen Master Dogen in the Tenzo Kyoken, he says, see this in that and that in this. What's he talking about? See this in that, like when things happen that we don't like. This can be a great teaching, a great turning moment, a great awakening. In yourself, you find yourself. Where am I in the midst of that? How do I handle this? Things we never even thought we would have to deal with or, struggle with in our life. So I hope none of us have things like that happen, but the reality is they happen. So it's the living road that we have to learn to walk on and to, that is the practice. And we think the practice is sitting on the cushion. Yeah, it's sitting on the cushion. But the founder of that temple I was at in Japan, Shogoji, Daichi Zenji, he wrote a fascicle, a teaching called 24-Hour Zazen. So it doesn't mean to carry your zafu around with you every moment you have and sit on it, In fact, get off of your zafu and take care of, cleaning your apartment or take care of your kids or take care of your cat or whatever. It is a matter of everydayness. Those things aren't less religious or less spiritual or less enlightening. They're not mundane. This was teaching of monastery. Monastery was take care of day-to-day living. That's what your job is. And you can have an idea how it should go, but, let it go. If it didn't work exactly the way you wanted, tomorrow is tomorrow. That is to be leaping fish, kind of. Someone in the Clouds and Waters Zen Center was named Leaping Fish. Leaping fish, it's like really to be alive in moment. So that takes a certain kind of like being with yourself a little bit, not walking around like a zombie, I'm enlightened, it's, anyway, you get it, yeah. So, I don't know, I should stop right there. I've been rambling on here, but, do you want to bear with me? I want to try, if I try one more thing. Yeah, you're okay. Just tell me go away. All right. All right, listen to this. I'm back in this chapter. This is Dogen. It's not easy to understand in a way, But let me translate. There's a lot of code words in here. It's like you got to get the code words when you're reading Dogen. So, so let's see. Okay. Dogen says there is a statement that has been made from antiquity. Actually, he's quoting Ungan Dojo. Ungan was disciple of Tozan Rokai. Tozan is the Zen, Chinese Zen master, 30-some generations after the Buddha. From that master, Tozan and Sozan, those masters became the Soto lineage. So it's a flavor. There are many flavors, Dogen says, of Zen. One is to concentrate on enlightenment, to have enlightenment, try to have some kind of enlightenment experience. To get your head around enlightenment, or however you want to interpret that. But anyway, Ungan Dojo, Dogen says, there is a statement that has been made from antiquity, that has been made from India, that has been made from heaven. What is this statement? If one falls on the ground, if one falls from the ground, one rises from the ground. There is no way to rise apart from the ground. Then he said, listen, it is to say one fallen to the ground must arise from the sky. What does that mean? Hang on. And one fallen to the sky must arise from the ground. Like usually you think of you are dropping from the sky and you rise from the ground. But he flips it and says, if you rise from the sky and fall from the ground. In other words, we have our ideas of sky and ground. But sky and ground are woven to one, you could say. So it's like we just have to deal with moment as it is. It's not always logical, like that's the way it should go. 1 + 1 = 2. But those are our calculations and our measurements sometimes, like didn't turn out that way, or it doesn't work that way. You have to kind of fall from the ground. It's like not just the ground you see. The ground you see, you have to get up off of. And the sky you see, you will fall out of the sky. But life, true life, has its own thing. So he just talks like opposites. It says, anyway, like we don't get, not to get hung up by our idea about how this should be, how things should go, and then get tossed, topsy-turvy if it doesn't go the way you think it should have went. That's our usual way. But there's suffering in that way. It's just based on our calculations. The Fukan Zazengi Dogen says, drop off body and mind and be alive in moment as it is. That is to be in the river. So then he says, well, how far apart are the sky and the ground? And then he says, I would answer thus, sky and ground are 108,000 miles apart. There's a footnote, 108,000 miles. 108 is a kind of a figure for unlimited delusions that I should live forever, or this should go this way, or if you drop something, it should go down. Yeah, it's not true in space, it just okay. But anyway, I'm sorry. This is getting a little heady and vague here, but simply speaking, Dogen says, see this in that and that in this. And even some of the hardest falls or experiences we've had in our life can be great teaching in terms of you and in terms of your growth, as a person. Dalai Lama says, you don't learn forbearance, for instance, from books. You learn forbearance by dealing with things. The thing we always say, it's not fair. Yeah, and then we go to fight, it's not fair. Yeah, it's not fair. But sometimes that's where it is. How do we live there without blowing up the whole thing? That is forbearance, like how to work with that. So it's he says our enemies are our best friend. Dalai Lama says, yeah, well, I don't like my enemies, who likes your enemies? But, they teach us about impermanence. They teach us about, where are you when things happen? That's part of life. Who doesn't have things happen? And some of us, we are the privileged class. What is the rest of the world enduring? So where is peace? Where is any kind of happiness for anybody? That is Zen in everyday living. Like somehow to, can we just, Kaylin McAllister, one of our priests who she has a bakery and works with ex-offenders. She doesn't call people ex-offenders. She calls them people who are coming out of prison. People, not a label, ex-offenders. But she works with people to help them find jobs, because if you have to check the box to say previous felon experience, you get, scummy jobs, not anything that you can sort of maybe move on in your life, maybe. But so she's created this bakery which hires people who have to check the box in order to get a job there. So it's, a lot of like teaching is there, so anyway, let me stop there. I'm starting to lose it. Thank you. I was just, anyway, gonna say something about Kayla, but she's really great, in terms of just working with people. And she just shared a story, about pictures she saw from this little girl in a wooden tub in a third world country someplace. And, you know, just squalid conditions, what we call squalor. But it was home. And the little girl sitting in the hot bathtub there just had this beautiful smile and bright eyes, you know. So even in the midst of what we call squalor, you know, there's a moment of beauty or peace or so, you know, it's not painting panacea kind of solutions. Life is hard, and who handles it gracefully? We all struggle with it, but that is the practice. And enlightenment is like being one with what is. Winter is winter. So being one with it. Gray days are gray days. Gonna be with gray days. That is the practice. So that's what we vow in the morning. Rising to get up this morning, I vow with all beings to realize everything, embracing the 10 directions. Thank you. Very cool. So my feeling is, Tejo-san, my feeling is if everyone would like to unmute, it's okay with me. And we could just interact. I don't know if that causes